My dear readers, listeners, and of course, friends. Imagine, if you will, a digital Colosseum, a sandbox of savagery and strategy where gods and mortals clash, not just for spoils, but for the sheer seduction of prestige and power. This was the Rallos Zek server, a veritable microcosm of human endeavor set within the pixels and scripts of the game EverQuest. To consider the server merely as a series of code and player interactions would be as short-sighted as viewing the Roman Empire solely through the lens of its architecture. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, a period I regard as the primordial ooze from which our current virtual escapades emanate, Rallos Zek emerged as a gladiatorial arena unlike any other. Named after the god of war, it was not just a realm where players congregated to engage in virtual combat. It was an unfolding drama of Machiavellian plots, economic subterfuge, and alliances as fluid as the very bytes that composed their world. The guilds of Rallos Zek, Legacy of Steel, Fires of Heaven, The Grove, Asylum, and others, were not merely collections of gamers. They were akin to the great houses of medieval Europe, each with its own culture, hierarchy, and territorial ambitions. Legacy of Steel, with their disciplined raids and militaristic precision, could be likened to the Roman legions, while Fires of Heaven, under the charismatic and strategic Führer Plandefiler, were more akin to the Macedonian phalanx under Alexander, capable of both grand vision and ruthless execution. Asylum and the Grove, meanwhile, served as the barbarian tribes at the gates, often underestimated, yet capable of cunning and resilience, leveraging guerrilla tactics that would occasionally see them triumph over their more storied foes. The interactions among these guilds were not limited to mere skirmishes and battles. They engaged in economic manipulations reminiscent of the mercantilist states of the 17th century. Markets were dominated, and scarce resources were hoarded to inflate prices or starve competitors, echoing the salt monopolies or the silk trade routes. But Rallos Zek was more than a theatre of war. It was a petri dish for the study of human behavior. Diplomacy on this server had the complexity of the Congress of Vienna. Guilds negotiated with the sophistication of nation-states, crafting treaties for non-aggression that were adhered to with a mixture of honor and opportunism, and just as often broken under the same guises. These were not merely players. They were statesmen, warriors, economists, and spies, each role embraced with a fervor that belied the virtuality of their world. Propaganda, too, played a crucial role. Guilds used forums to broadcast their victories and vilify their enemies, crafting narratives designed to bolster morale among their ranks and sow discord among their adversaries. The impact of these tales was profound, influencing recruitment, strategic planning, and even the outcomes of conflicts. The culture of Rallos Zek was a stark reminder of the thin veneer that separates civilization from barbarism. It was a world where might often made right, yet it was also a realm where the communal experiences and spontaneous events, tournaments, festivals, and ceasefires, reminded everyone involved of the underlying humanity shared between combatants. This poignant dichotomy illustrates the depth of engagement and the intensity of the emotional investment that players brought to Rallos Zek. Unlike the more sanitized, rule-bound engagements of today's MMOs, where death may inconvenience but seldom costs dearly, Rallos Zek punished failure with a brutal ferocity. To be slain in battle meant not just a metaphoric back to the drawing board, but the literal loss of both possessions and progress. Coins and precious items could be stripped from your virtual corpse, leaving you economically wounded and strategically crippled. The pain of defeat was palpable, driving a level of seriousness and commitment that is rare in today's gaming environments. Yet it was precisely this harshness that forged such strong allegiances and bitter rivalries. The stakes were undeniably high. The server's full loot rule mirrored the brutal realities of ancient warfare, where the vanquished might lose everything tangible upon their defeat. It added an existential weight to each raid, each skirmish, and each meticulously planned ambush. The anxiety of potential loss heightened the thrill of victory, making each successful defense of territory or devastating offensive against rivals not just a game achievement, but a visceral experience. This environment fostered a level of strategic thinking that often went beyond the game itself. The manipulation of in-game economics, strategic disinformation in community forums, and complex diplomatic negotiations that could rival any real-world scenario showed that the lines between game and reality, at least in terms of cognitive engagement and emotional investment, were remarkably thin. Players developed skills in leadership, manipulation, cooperation, and betrayal that could easily be seen as applicable outside the digital realm. In the world of Rallos Zek, names like Silk of Legacy of Steel and Fanfare of Fires of Heaven became legends not merely for their gaming prowess but for their capacity to lead, inspire, and sometimes intimidate. These were not just avatars, they were embodiments of qualities we associate with historic leaders and revolutionary figures. The strategic depth, the raw emotional engagement, and the sheer unpredictability of player interactions on this server provided a form of entertainment that was profoundly immersive and occasionally transformative. As we consider the evolution of online worlds, Rallos Zek stands out for its raw, unfiltered depiction of human nature played out in a realm where consequences were dire and victories were sweet. The decline of such unforgiving environments in modern gaming, replaced by more forgiving mechanics where death is but a minor setback, reflects broader shifts in our cultural engagement with digital worlds. We seek entertainment, certainly, but perhaps we flinch from the deeper emotional entanglements and the stark nakedness of our ambitions and fears that servers like Rallos Zek laid bare. Indeed, the saga of Rallos Zek up to its merging into Zek during the great server consolidations serves as a potent allegory for the rise and fall of empires, the flux of alliances, and the perennial dance of domination and resistance that characterizes all human history, whether played out on the battlefields of the ancient world or within the coded confines of a digital one. The memory of Rallos Zek, therefore, serves as both a nostalgic touchstone for those who experienced its trials and triumphs, and as a stark reminder of what is lost when we sanitize conflict and strip away the high stakes that lend such depth to our virtual conquests.